A Course in
What?
with Cynthia Morgan.
Hey, course friends. Welcome to A Course in What? I'm Cynthia Morgan, and this is a podcast in which I read and discuss the text of A Course in Miracles. And A Course in What is a free weekly podcast that comes out every Tuesday. And this is episode 24. So a course friend sent me a Facebook message recently and told me about a Google telephone number that might be helpful for our community and the podcast so that listeners like you could call this number and leave a message or ask a question or leave a comment to be included in the podcast. And I thought that was a really great idea. So thank you so much for that. And we've set that Google telephone number up. So if that's easier than getting online and writing out an email or a Facebook message, I would be happy to receive that via telephone. The number is 707-500-ACIW, and the ACIW is 2249. So again, it's 707-500-ACIW. And we are also creating a Facebook page just for the podcast. And that will be at facebook.com/A Course in What. So you can find episodes there. And I don't know, I think it's just a nice way to create more of a community. People can connect with other course students. You can leave comments there. People can read people's comments and comment on those comments. You can comment on the episodes or ask questions there as well. So again, I'll talk more about that as we have that up and running, but you should be able to go to that this week and check it out. So thanks so much. So before we get into the reading, I don't have any questions I'm going to answer. I just want to say something that I think is important, and that is that the purpose of A Course in Miracles is to get you in touch with your own internal teacher. And teachers of A Course in Miracles are obviously helpful, but ultimately, the Holy Spirit within you is your best authority in interpreting the Course. And by now, you know that I'm certainly not an expert on A Course in Miracles. I would consider myself a teacher of the Course, but certainly not an expert. In my opinion, there's really only been one expert, and that's Kenneth Wapnick. And there are people who demonstrate the principles of A Course in Miracles very, very well, and they're people who understand the Course very well. Sometimes those match up in the same people and sometimes they don't. I've always been able to grasp the Course fairly easily for whatever reason. It's like someone who's just naturally good at math. And so having said that, I've been studying the Course long enough to know that my understanding of it evolves. And I'm sure those long-term students out there listening feel the same way. And in 10 years, if we were going to start this podcast over, I'm sure I would say some things differently. But we're not 10 years in the future and we're not 10 years in the past. We're here today. And so I believe that if you found this podcast and if it appeals to you, then we are meant to take this journey together now for our spiritual evolution. But if I say something that doesn't resonate with you, please understand that it may be because I'm completely off the mark. And if you read a sentence in a different way, then by all means take your interpretation over mine. Because ultimately, again, this is a course between you and your own internal teacher. And my hope is that my reading and explanation of the text illuminates that relationship and deepens it as well, and the Course. Okay, so we are on chapter 2, the separation and the atonement, section 7, cause and effect. And in the last podcast, we read paragraphs 1 through 3, and today we'll finish this section reading paragraphs 4 through 7. All right, so paragraph 4, sentence 1. It has already been said that you believe you cannot control fear because you made it, and your belief in it seems to render it out of your control. So early in the Course, Jesus tells us you can never control the effects of fear yourself because you made fear and you believe in what you made. And that's basically what he's reiterating here. We made fear. So, like that Einstein quote about the problem not being able to be solved at the same level of consciousness with which it was created, we can't heal fear from a belief in fear. So, once we believe in fear, we become a victim of it, so to speak. That's what we do. We make fear, we project it out, and then we believe that it's outside of ourselves, able to do something to us. So then we become afraid. But we forget that fear is entirely made up in the mind. It's an effect of the cause, which is the belief in separation. Sentence 2. Yet any attempt to resolve the error through attempting the mastery of fear is useless. Mastering something is like learning something you don't already know, like mastering a skill. It starts from the assumption that you don't have it, or you can't do it, or you don't know it, etc. Fear can't be mastered because it's already created in your mind. There's no reason to master fear. In fact, we're already great masters on some level at making fear. 3. In fact, it asserts the power of fear by the very assumption that it need be mastered. Okay, so it meaning any attempt. Any attempt asserts the power of fear by the very assumption that it need to be mastered. So if we're trying to master fear, then we are making it real. The antidote is simply love. 4. The true resolution rests entirely on mastery through love. Okay, we just talked about that. Let fear be replaced by love in our minds. 5. In the interim, however, the sense of conflict is inevitable, since you have placed yourself in a position where you believe in the power of what does not exist. In the interim means until you've done that, until love has replaced fear in your mind, you will be in conflict because your mind believes that there are actually two choices. Paragraph 5, sentence 1. Nothing and everything cannot coexist. Nothing being fear and everything being love. They're in two different parts of your mind, so they can't coexist. Either you believe in fear or you believe in love. You can vacillate between the two, but you can't believe a little bit in love and a little bit in fear at the same time. 2. To believe in one is to deny the other. And we talked about that in the last podcast, that to vote for one candidate is to reject the other. To believe or vote for love is to deny fear, and vice versa. 3. Fear is really nothing, and love is everything. So fear is nothing because it lacks love, which is all there is in reality with a capital R. 4. Whenever light enters darkness, the darkness is abolished. So when love enters your mind, there is no fear. There can be no fear. Sort of like that love is blind idea. When we're madly in love, there is no fear. There's just that all-consuming love in those moments. 5. What you believe is true for you. If you believe in fear, you'll see fear all around you. If you believe in love, you will see love around you. It comes back to who is your teacher in your mind, who's guiding your perceptions. 6. In this sense, the separation has occurred, and to deny it is merely to use denial inappropriately. In this sense, meaning that you do believe in fear and it has already become real for you. The separation then has occurred. And here we go again with this very important sentence. To deny it is merely to use denial inappropriately. This is not a course, again, in denying what we may, denying our experience, denying joy, denying happiness, denying pain, denying suffering. It's a course in denying the ego's interpretation of those experiences. To brush anything off as, well, it just doesn't matter because it's an illusion, is a gross misunderstanding of this course, in my opinion. If that's the case, then that's all the course would say. The course would simply have one sentence. It's all an illusion. Rather, the course is asking us to look at what we've made differently, to choose a different teacher in our experiences so that we might learn to wake up and help others wake up to the idea that only love exists, that there's really only one of us here, and that includes everyone and everything. We are one. 7. However, to concentrate on error is only a further error. So I think to concentrate on error means to focus solely on the error instead of recognizing that there is another way. To concentrate means to focus your attention to the exclusion of anything else. So instead of focusing on the errors of fear, on the unforgiveness, on the war, the cruelty, or what others do to you, don't forget to remember that there's another way of looking at it. So you want to look at that. You don't want to deny the experience, but you also want to hold in your mind that there's another way of looking at it. And if you remember that, then you can't just be concentrating on the error or on fear. And the Course doesn't say, don't look at the error. I believe the Course uses the word look over 600 times, and I'll have to fact check that myself, but it uses it a lot. It wants us to not deny the illusion. It keeps saying, look, 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 look at what your ego has made. Look at what's happened. Look, look, look. Don't deny our experiences, but rather to look at them. Just don't concentrate on them. There's a subtle difference between looking and concentrating, but that difference is the difference between waking and sleeping. Concentrating on error keeps you asleep or sustains, as the sentence says, further error. 8. The initial corrective procedure is to recognize temporarily that there is a problem, but only as an indication that immediate correction is needed. So here he's not saying deny the problem. He's saying recognize temporarily that there's a problem. He's giving us instructions here. Look at that. There's a problem. The problem's temporary. There's been a temporary disruption of oneness, of your truth, but again, it only serves as an indicator that we need correction. We fell asleep and we need to wake up. 9. This establishes a state of mind in which the atonement can be accepted without delay. You can only accept the atonement if you recognize that you are asleep. You have to be miracle-minded ready. 10. It should be emphasized, however, that ultimately no compromise is possible between everything and nothing. So he's asking us not to believe that we can compromise. When you choose fear, you will exclude love. And when you choose love, you will reject fear. There's no compromise between the two. 11. Time is essentially a device by which all compromise in this respect can be given up. So as we've talked about in previous podcast episodes, time is a tool in which we learn our atonement lessons. While in this world, we learn our lessons of forgiveness, of choosing love over fear. Ultimately, compromise will be completely given up because fear will be given up in time. 12. It only seems to be abolished by degrees because time itself involves intervals that do not exist. We are stuck in time in a linear progression that seems to be moving forward minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, month by month, year by year. Time is part of the illusion, so that's why these intervals don't really exist. 13. Miscreation made this necessary as a corrective device. So if we hadn't had the thought of separation or miscreation, we wouldn't need a corrective device like time. To the ego, time serves one purpose, and that is to sustain guilt. And to the Holy Spirit, time is a corrective device to choose once again. You get another minute, you get another day, another year to choose differently. 14. The statement, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life," needs only one slight correction to be meaningful in this context. He gave it to his only begotten Son. So, this is obviously a biblical statement referring to Jesus, and I think it could be interpreted in more than one way. But I read it as he gave not the Son, but he gave everlasting life to his only Son, which is all of us. Paragraph 6, sentence 1. It should especially be noted that God has only one Son. Okay, I just mentioned that. Sentence 2. If all his creations are his sons, everyone must be an integral part of the whole sonship. I include everyone, including animals, plants, minerals, everything. Everything is the same here. We're all a part of that one Son of God. 3. The sonship in its oneness transcends the sum of its parts. So studies show that there's greater intelligence in groups. So here he's saying something sort of similar, that we as the one Son have the collective power to transcend the illusion together. As parts, we are left within the illusion. Because of course, a part has to be part of the illusion. If only oneness exists, then parts are part of an illusion. 4. However, this is obscured as long as any of its parts is missing. So oneness is obscured as long as anyone has not accepted the atonement, as long as there is a part missing. 5. That is why the conflict cannot ultimately be resolved until all the parts of the sonship have returned. So if one person still believes in fear, then that holds all of us back. It has to be a unanimous decision. 6. Only then can the meaning of wholeness in the true sense be understood. So, -1 is not 1, sort of like the idea of no child left behind. We will transcend together or not at all. We have to take everyone and everything with us. Not that we can't individually wake up, but as a collective one Son, we can't return collectively home to God. One person waking up wakes up others around him or her. And usually, if you wake up, you work to wake up others as well. You don't just sit around and do nothing. So there's work to be done in the waking up process. 7. Any part of the sonship can believe in error or incompleteness if he so chooses. Okay, so basically he's saying you're free to choose as you wish. 8. However, if he does so, he is believing in the existence of nothingness. But if you do choose fear or value the illusion of separation over oneness, you are believing in nothing. And the problem with believing in nothing is that it keeps you from something with a capital S. 9. The correction of this error is the atonement. And we've talked a lot about the atonement. The atonement went into effect as soon as we had the belief or thought of separation. That's its function, to heal the misbelief, to roll the carpet of time back up. Paragraph 7, sentence 1. I have already briefly spoken about readiness, but some additional points might be helpful here. I love how he just reiterates what he says. So this is referring to earlier in the text where he says, the healer who relies on his own readiness is endangering his understanding. You are perfectly safe as long as you are completely unconcerned about your readiness, but maintain a consistent trust in mine. You may remember that. 2. Readiness is only the prerequisite for accomplishment. So I see readiness sort of as the same as willingness. For instance, all I need from a client in order to do hypnosis is willingness. I don't need them to believe in it or not believe in it. I just need them to be willing. And when people make an appointment and they pay me and they show up, it shows that they're willing. So I haven't had clients that, I've had like one that I haven't been able to do hypnosis with because that's all I really need. And it's the same thing here. If you're willing, you're ready. How can you be ready if you aren't even willing? So again, I'll read that sentence 2. Readiness is only the prerequisite for accomplishment. 3. The two should not be confused. So readiness and accomplishment should not be confused. 4. As soon as a state of readiness occurs, there is usually some degree of desire to accomplish, but it is by no means necessarily undivided. So the accomplishment is the undivided state. The readiness is, there could still be some hesitancy in readiness. You're still vacillating a little bit in readiness. You have the willingness, but you're not 100% undivided. It's only when you've achieved that. So just like a client can be ready to do hypnosis, but that doesn't mean she's achieved the hypnotic state, that peaceful, relaxing hypnotic state. There's a whole induction that needs to happen before she can achieve that. And using my example, that undivided state would be the hypnotic state. Our undivided state is love, but we've got some work to do, or undo, as the Course would say, before we can achieve that undivided state. 5. The state does not imply more than a potential for a change of mind. So the state, meaning the state of readiness, is a necessary first step. 6. Confidence cannot develop fully until mastery has been accomplished. So mastery is that undivided state. We're talking about a state of mind, of course. Confidence in our change of mind can't happen until we've transcended fear. So like in hypnosis, you first need to transcend your conscious mind to reach your subconscious or your superconscious mind. 7. We have already attempted to correct the fundamental error that fear can be mastered and have emphasized that the only real mastery is through love. Okay, I think we talked about that. He's reiterating that. 8. Readiness is only the beginning of confidence. Again, the willingness is the first step. 9. You may think this implies that an enormous amount of time is necessary between readiness and mastery, but let me remind you that time and space are under my control. So I find this very interesting and very reassuring because he's sort of enticing us, isn't he? He's saying like, oh, you may be ready, but you have a long way to go before you master this. But then he's saying, but don't worry, I've got everything under control. You just allow yourself to be ready and willing, and then watch what happens. I find that very fascinating and interesting. So what does this all mean to our daily lives? Really, it's just about being willing to see someone or something differently. That's just where it's at. Like if everyone in the world was willing to see those people outside of them, to see animals, to see the world differently, everything would be different. To see everyone and everything as one with you. If we really did that, the ego would disappear. All of this war and cruelty and violence, all of that would disappear because we're looking through the lens of the Holy Spirit. And there is no cruelty in the Holy Spirit. There is no fear. There is no guilt. There is no sense of separation. There's only love and oneness. So in our own lives, it means just being willing in your daily lessons. The next time someone says something to you, can you not see that as an attack? Rather, can you let go of that perception based on fear and separation and instead choose to see that person differently? That is the readiness and the willingness to gain that mastery. So that's the work that we need to do in our daily lives as students of A Course in Miracles, to not just read this text, but really to begin to apply it to when, your back is against the wall and you want to choose your ego in that moment, to choose love instead. And notice how that changes everything. Okay, so we'll stop there for today. And if you would like to stay in touch with me, again, we have this new Facebook page, A Course in What? And also I have my Facebook page at facebook.com/Cynthia Morgan Hypnotherapy. And you can go to my website at cynthiamorgan.us and you can contact me through all of those sources. And of course, we have the new telephone number too. All right, so thank you for joining me. And if you would like to say the summary of A Course in Miracles with me, that would be great. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God.